Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Coder. I'm Chris, and this week we are going to continue on with our Minesweeper game. We last week did the tiles, I believe. We added the covered tiles so that we can then click on them and uncover what's there. So that would be either a mine, a clue, or a blank, right? So now we've got these blanks or other kinds of tiles here. So obviously we need a way to uncover more tiles. And we need to set up some scenarios for what happens when we uncover specific tiles. So first of all, how about we say, well, let's say if we click on a mine, we just say we're dead, game is over. That'll be the easiest thing to implement. Maybe not. Nope, let's do the hardest one first. Let's work on the algorithm that's going to uncover all of the blank tiles and the adjacent tiles to those blank tiles. So what I mean by that is if we click on this tile to uncover, it being blank, it's going to check all of the tiles around it, and if the tile next to it is blank, it's going to check the tiles around it. And the way that it's going to do this is it's going to keep a running list of tiles to check, and it's going to keep adding tiles to that list to check until it runs into a tile that's either a clue or a mine, and then that would be the last tile adjacent to that tile that it uncovered that it'll check. And it will only check tiles that have already been, or that have not yet been uncovered. Yeah, because if they've already been uncovered, then we don't need to check them again. So, here's how we're going to do that. First, we're going to go into our game script. Here's our game script. So, let's just kind of look through what we've got here. We've got our start method, our update method, which checks our input. We've got our check input method, of course, that checks to see if we're, basically pressing the mouse anywhere on the screen. And here's Visual Update wanting to do Visual Studio wanting to do an update. Let's close that. Let's see. We've got place mines, which is a script that run or a method that runs that actually just places all the mines for us on the grid. And then we've got place clues. So I want to take a look at this place clues script, because we are going to reusing parts of this script. Actually, we're gonna reuse this whole entire double for loop, this nested for loop that we've got here. We're going to do kind of the same thing to check all of the adjacent tiles, because basically that's what we're doing when we're placing clues. We are checking the adjacent tiles to the tile that we're going to place to make sure that tile, for one, isn't outside of our bounds, and two, let's see, what else are we doing here? Okay, so yeah, it's for placing the clues. We're checking to see if it's a mine. So, and then we've got our placing blanks. Okay, see, these are all the methods that we use to place things. So now what we want to do is we want to create a method to reveal or to check things, right? So, we're going to have to call this method from another method. Or we're going to have to call this method from the method that we use to basically, get the mouse click from. So our input method for the mouse. So what we'll do is we'll make this a void. It's not going to return anything. And we'll call it, let's see, reveal adjacent tiles for tile at. Because we're going to pass in a position for the tile that we are currently clicking on. All right. So let's see, how do we do this? I guess we could just simply start by checking all the tiles. We don't really need the for loops because we're not going to check the entire grid. So we're just going to check all the tiles around the tile. So, you know, you guys know what this looks like, right? So, first things first, we are going to make sure that our position is normalized because we have, we're getting a float here. I could have just said, asked for two integer variables, an x and a y, and we could have handled that outside of this method. But I like to handle these kinds of things inside the methods. It's just my preference. I don't know. So there's x and y. So now we'll check on all the directions, right? So we'll start with north. As long as we are not outside of the bounds of our grid, which is the top end of that would be 9. So as long as we are within the top bounds of the grid, that's when we know we can check north. So we'll do if y plus 1 is less than 9. So that means that, so y plus 1 would be the adjacent tile north of the tile that we're currently checking. So we're checking to see if that's less than 9. And if it is, then we can check if that tile is, or basically we're checking to see what kind of tile that tile is. Okay? And what we want to find out is if that tile is a mine, or if it's a blank, or if it's, you know, we just need to find out what kind of tile it is. And because we have to do this 8 times, because we have 8 different directions to check, it would be much nicer to put that whole bit inside of a method called check tile. So what I'll do is I'll create this method called check tile at, okay? And again, we're going to pass in vector2. Actually, we're going to go ahead and give it int x and y, since we already have those variables here. So do int x and int y. And since the method doesn't exist, it's going to give us these red squiggly lines below. So all we have to do is hover over that, and we can click on show potential fixes. And then it comes up with this. And basically we just click on it. It says generate method game.checkTile at. So this is just basically telling us that within our game class, it's going to create a method called checkTile at, right? So this method stub is automatically created for us. And I don't know why it added this in. That's interesting. And the v1, what is that about? Anyways, that's super weird. But it's still complaining. Oh! Because I'm so, like, completely airheaded sometimes. You're not supposed to pass in the variable types with the variables when you're passing parameters to a method. In my head, I was already creating this method in here, so that's why I did all that. So this is why that method was created. So let's back up a minute here. All right, let's do this properly. So I'm going to erase that method stub that just got populated, and I'm going to rewrite this. So this is how it should have happened. Check tile at and xy, just as if the method already existed and we were just passing in the variables just like we normally would. But then we get the squiggly lines and it says, hey, the name checkTile at does not exist in the current context. The current context being our class name, which is game. So then we get this, little link here, show potential fixes. So we click on that and it says, hey, you want me to generate a method called checkTile at in the game context, which is the game class. So we click on that, and hey, look at that. Private void check tile at int x, int y. Private, I think, is understood if you don't add it as a keyword. I'm not 100% sure on that. For now, we're just going to keep the throw new not implemented exception because we're not ready to fill that code in yet. But this does allow us to keep going without getting any kind of errors or anything. So that's nice. So now that we've got this this first position here, we're going to go ahead and run through the rest of these. So the next one we're going to check is going to be, let's do east. Let's just go around. So we do north, east, southwest, then we do northeast, northwest, and then southeast and southwest. So we'll do northeast. So as long as we are within the right bounds of the grid. So that again would be 9. So we've got x plus 1. As long as it's less than 9, right? That's a thing. Then we just do check tile at and do x, y. Right. Then we'll do south, and that's as long as we are within the bottom bounds of the grid. And here we just need to make sure that we are greater than 0. So if y minus 1, because we're checking south, is greater than 0, meaning that we are still within the bounds. Whoops. At that point, we want to check what kind of tile we've got. Okay. So now we'll check west. As long as we are within the left bounds of the grid. And that again will be 0. So we've got if x minus 1 is greater than 0. Then we check tile. Right. And now we get into the double positions, the northeast. We'll start with that. Northeast. As long as we are within the top left, or top left bounds of the grid. So if y plus 1 is less than 9 and x plus 1 is less than 9. Okay, that means the top left, or top right, sorry, top right bounds, yep, because we're doing northeast. So I wrote that wrong. Get confused that way. Then we'll check the tile at x, and I am already like seeing a mistake here now, and I'm sure you guys probably already caught it. Is why are we always checking the tile at x and y? That makes no sense whatsoever. So what we need to do here is we need to check tile at x and y plus 1. And here it's x plus 1 and y. Here it's x and y minus 1. Here it's x minus 1 and y. And then we've got x plus 1 and y plus 1. So then we're going to need to check the northwest. And that's going to be as long as we are within the top left bounds of the grid. So that's if y plus 1 is less than 9 and x minus 1 is greater than 0. And we check tile at x plus 1 and y minus 1. Wrong. x minus 1. Okay. So let's see. We got northeast, northwest. Now we need southeast. As long as we are within the bottom right bounds of the grid. If y minus 1 is greater than 0 and x plus 1 is less than 9, check tile at x plus 1, y minus 1. Okay. And finally, the last one is southwest. As long as we are within the bottom left bounds of the grid, we say if bottom left, so that's y minus 1 is greater than 0 and y minus, or sorry, x minus 1 is greater than 0. Then we check the tile at x minus 1, y minus 1. Whoops. Yep, that looks good to me. Okay, so just quickly going over this again. I'm sure everyone got it. First of all, I have to fix this. This G has been bugging me. All right. So we are calling this method, not yet, but we're gonna. So we created it. So we're getting the position, making sure x and y are actually integers. And then we are just checking the north, the east, south, west, northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. So we're checking all the adjacent tiles. And as long as they are within the grid, then we basically say, okay, we can check that tile. All right. So before we start optimizing this, let's go ahead and make it work first, right? So first thing, let's make sure that we can actually get the data back that we actually need, right? So if we check the tile, let's see if we can, let's see if we can get the right data. So if so we need to get a tile, and that's in the array. So in the grid, so let's see here. We do tile equals grid xy. So that'll get us a tile object, and then we can say switch tile kind case tile kind tile kind blank. Actually, you know what? I don't want to do a switch for this. I want to do if statements. So we'll do if tile kind equals tile kind. Whoops. Tile kind dot blank. We're gonna do one thing. Else if tile kind tile kind dot clue. We're gonna do a different thing, and then else if tile kind equals tile.tileKind.mine. Then we're going to do an even different thing. For now, the things that we're going to do are going to just be outputting something. So debug.log tile at x y is a blank tile. Alright, I'm just going to copy this, and we're going to paste that here, and here, and then we're just going to say is a clue tile, and is a mine tile. So, with that saved, the only thing left to do is to call this reveal adjacent tiles for tileat method. And we're going to check that here. Reveal adjacent tiles for tileat. And that is going to be, you know, since we already have x and y all set up here, let's go ahead and pass x and y to this. And let's change this to not be a vector 2. Let's just do int x and y. That'll save us some code here. Alright. So now all we're doing is checking positions. We're not doing anything else. And we're calling this right after we grab the tile. And then actually, let's go ahead and do that last. Whoops. So I'm going to just move this up here. Cut and paste. Alright. So, reveal adjacent tiles for tile at x, y. And that's in the check input method, the very last line, using the same x and y that we got from the mouse position. So, save that. And go into Unity. And let's press play. Hopefully, it'll all work out, and we'll see something in the console. So I'm going to clear that console right now. And we are going to just click on something. Blank tile. So now I should get 8 console line outputs. That tell me the tiles that are around this tile. So remember we said it's going to check north first, and then east, and then south, and then west, and then northeast, and then northwest, and then southeast, and then southwest. So this is saying that the tile at 5, 6 is a blank tile. And it's talking about this tile here. So that's blank, just like it said. So then it's saying, okay, well now we're checking the east. And it's also blank. Which it is. Then it's saying that we're checking south. And that one is also a blank tile. It is. So now this one, the west tile, that one is saying it's a clue. And it is. It's a 1. So now the next one that we're going to check is the northeast, and that one should be blank according to this. And then we're going to check southeast, and that's also supposed to be blank. And then we're going to check southwest. Whoops. That was wrong. all the rest of them are blank is basically what it's telling us, except for the last one, which is southwest, which is supposed to be a clue. All right, so that's working literally exactly how we want. And I don't want to make this video too long. The next part of this is going to go, yeah, we're going to have to do a part 2. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave it here, and we're going to do a part 2 of this. So the first part is checking all the adjacent tiles, which is what we've got now, right? We've got this method that goes around and checks all the tiles around the tile that we clicked to find out what kind of tiles are around it, so that it knows what to do with those tiles next. The next episode, what we're going to do is if the tile around the tiles, or sorry, if the tiles around the tile that we clicked are blanks, then we're going to add those tiles to a list of more tiles to check. If that tile around the tile that it found is a clue tile, like these ones are not going to get added to that list because we don't care what's around them. Because, you know, next to this one could be a mine and we don't want to uncover that. So if we get to a clue tile, we want to stop. That's it. That's a dead stop for us. We don't want to check any adjacent tiles around it. The other thing that we want to do is we'll have to modify the tile class, and we'll have to add a property there so that we can keep track of which tiles we checked. So we will add a checked property, and then that way, whenever we get to a tile that has that checked property set, we'll know that we don't have to check it again. We don't want to check things like too many times because we want to try to be a little more efficient with this. So still lots of stuff to do to actually get that part of the game working. So if I throw that into this tutorial, this is going to be like an hour, easy. So I really don't want to do that. I hate editing videos that are that long. They take forever to process on YouTube, and by the time you guys get done with them, you just end up being like tired, and you will have like not retained any of the information. You're not going to get anything out of that. So I find that these shorter tutorials are better for you. They're certainly better for me. So here's what I'll do is I'll end it here, and next week we're going to do all the things that I just said. So if you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. The comments go down below as always. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Thanks to all my patrons. You guys are awesome. Love you guys. Thanks for all the support. If you guys want to check out my Patreon, go over there. You can basically join up, and you get like all kinds of behind-the-scenes stuff. You get source code projects, and pretty much everything that I don't share on YouTube goes on Patreon. I respond to people's messages there. If you need help, if you have questions, I am happy to help you there as well. So lots of stuff going on Patreon. I'm trying to stay more active over there. So I hope to see you guys there. And that's it. I'll see you guys next week. Hope you guys have a great week. And yep, see you then.